Hey everyone! E3 is here! Hooray! The gaming apocalypse has finally arrived, and there have been a number of surprises and reveals. The press conferences ended, and each of them has shown at least something for everyone. At the time of this video, we've gotten confirmation of 2 new Metroid games for Switch and 3DS, a shadow of the Colossus remake, some footage of the new Spider-Man game, and so much more. While these games are real surprises, and the majority of people are excited for them, there are some other games that caught my attention that I am more excited for. This first game isn't really a surprise, it's more of a game I was excited to see. Star Wars Battlefront 2 seems to be a great improvement over the first game, including more eras, a more refined class system, and overhauled mechanics. It seems like they addressed almost every single point of my previous video where I spoke about what Battlefront 2 should change. They got rid of hero tokens and pretty much every power-up altogether. Instead of getting lucky and finding the power-up scattered across the map, the more you play the objective and support your team, the more points you earn that you can spend to become a hero or fly a starship. This seems to lead to an increase in team play as it gives its players a better incentive to support their squad. The class system seems to be reminiscent of the old Battlefront games, where you have an assault class, you have a support class, and a heavy class. There was one other class I believe was called Specialist. But right now as it stands, that the heavy class seems to be the most powerful, considering he has a personal shield and a heavy blaster, and he just rains down suppressing fire and surprisingly high amounts of damage, and he has the most health. Heroes seem to be more versatile this time around, considering that they have much more abilities at their disposal. Darth Maul, for example, is the glass cannon that I want him to be. He doesn't block. He's the only lightsaber user so far that can't block, but he makes up for it by just being this overwhelming force of destruction. It's great. Starfighter combat seems to be improved with a new UI and new control over your vehicle, so that there are no evasive maneuvers limited to a button. You actually have an analog stick to do barrel rolls or any type of evasive maneuver. Battlefront 2 seems to be taking notes from Titanfall 2 and its success by having a single-player campaign and no paid DLC, which is an obvious plus. However, there are microtransactions which I really hope aren't used to become a pay-to-win scenario. To many people, this is the Battlefront game that we should have gotten 2 years ago, and EA seems to have addressed that by including almost every single thing that many people have clamored for. But wait! Where are those droid cars? This next game was a surprise. It was first shown off at EA's press conference, but we got to see more of it during Microsoft's press conference. And I have to say, Anthem is the game I wanted Destiny to be. At first glance during the trailer, I thought it was just a generic, third-person action game from the Mass Effect guys. So I thought it was going to be more like Mass Effect. Then I saw the exosuit that the main character was using, or that the play character at least was using. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty neat. Like, you have a suit, and, it's like super powerful, and, nothing too crazy. Then, it showcased the world. The player character started moving to, an edge of the city, to, the dock or the loading bay, whatever it was. And we got to see what the world looked like, and I was immediately reminded of Xenoblade Chronicles X. The scale of the world seems massive, and even some of the landmarks, some of the land masses, look similar to those that we've seen in Xenoblade Chronicles. And then once the player character and her party member jumped off and started flying around, I was like, whoa, this is freaking crazy. I was all in on this game. You could fly around with your exosuit. Each exosuit has its own ability or something. But I'm more excited about the exploration in this game than the actual combat. The actual combat, it's fine. You have your exosuit has missiles, different abilities. One of the team members had a mortar cannon strapped to his back or something. But I just love exploration in general. Just flying around in a huge uninhabited world, or not really uninhabited, but just a mysterious world like this. Some areas were just as if Xenoblade Chronicles X was taken by BioWare and just added a fresh coat of paint to it And instead of just giant skells or mechs, you have an exosuit. Because some of the worlds look very similar. But the fact that you're getting experience for exploring, experience for finding new locations, like they mentioned that, oh, I have not been in this cave before. And the guy says, yeah, you should go and just check it out. I was like, yeah, I'm all in. I'm all for this. This 7 to 8 minute gameplay trailer that they showed off left me wanting more. And I really hope BioWare takes their time and we don't get another Mass Effect Andromeda down the line. Speaking of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 looks great. The fact that it maintains the scale that all previous games had is a huge plus. The art style for the game has changed a bit, looking a bit more stylized and anime than Xenoblade Chronicles X. X's art style focused more on realism. However, most of the character animations and character face models looked a bit odd, and it didn't really work with the type of art style that they were going for. Now, it looks more pleasing to the eye. Well, at least the environments are still on point, though. Combat seems to have also been refined a bit, considering that the art palette is no longer at the bottom of the screen and more along the right corner of the screen, making the HUD a little less cluttered. However, the biggest selling point for me is the scale of the world. I spent countless hours in the previous game just running around, exploring, jumping off huge cliffs without taking any fall damage, picking up any and all collectibles that I could find, and fighting any monster that's there to stand in my way. I just hope that this game retains that spirit of exploration and free roaming around without any restrictions that I love so much about the previous one. Next up, we got Monster Hunter World, which was a huge surprise from Sony. I'm not really the biggest Monster Hunter fan since the only game I played was Monster Hunter Tri on the Nintendo Wii. The reason why I haven't played any other titles is because the majority of them were on handhelds, and I didn't really want to deal with the small screen or the weird control scheme. However, with that said, I do love the planning and coordination that goes into taking down your target. The different locales and different types of monsters are really cool. And the different armor sets that you get from defeating those monsters are just as awesome. There were also some new tools that you could use to take down your target. For example, in the trailer it showed that the hunter put on some sort of ghillie suit to protect them from being seen when he's hiding in the grass. And also, in order to prevent yourself from being thrown off, there seems to be some sort of grappling hook so that whenever you're trying to mount the monster, you're able to just grapple right back in case the monster just tosses you aside. The series has so much charm, and the fact that it's now returning to a console, aside from Monster Hunter Double Cross or Double X, however you want to call that, that's coming to the Switch, we're getting essentially a brand new full-fledged Monster Hunter game coming out on consoles. And that's something I've wanted for a while now. Monster Hunter is one of the bigger franchises for Capcom, and I can tell you with certainty there will be no shortage of players. This game is what a lot of people wanted. They wanted another Monster Hunter that wasn't just limited to the confines of a handheld. We wanted a full-fledged Monster Hunter on console. And I just can't wait to take down a Rathalos on a big screen. This next game is a game that Nintendo really wanted to focus most of their time on E3 for, and with good reason. Super Mario Odyssey looks phenomenal. In essence, it seems to blend a bit of Super Mario Galaxy with Super Mario 64 for a proper 3D Mario title. For years we've been getting just Super Mario 3D World, 3D Land, simple stuff like that. But Super Mario Odyssey seems to take it to the next level, and the worlds seem to be more vibrant, there's more charm to it. Mario's hat is now like a sentient being that can just take over the free will of enemies so that you can use it for your own purposes. So you can just throw your hat on a Bullet Bill, it grows a mustache, has the hat on, and all of a sudden you're the Bullet Bill. And it's a really neat mechanic. I like how the hat now does... It's not just, oh look, it has eyes on it. It actually is a gameplay feature. You toss the hat and it acts like the spin from Mario Galaxy. That's your little melee attack or ranged attack or something. aside from just your jump. During the gameplay demonstrations, it seems that the game doesn't decide to immediately kick you out of a world the moment you get a star, or a moon in this case. You notice that when the developer gets a moon or completes an objective, it just says, you got a moon, and then it doesn't kick you out of the world like in other previous Mario games. You stay in that world, and you just go around, explore, and look for the next moon to collect. I love this. The game knows that you want to continue exploring. You don't want to be taken out of the world and put into the hub. You just want to keep going. You want to keep looking for stuff. And I believe the game has a lot of things to look for, which is probably why the developers decided to keep this mechanic there. Many of us wanted a real mainline Mario game. We didn't want to just stick with the whole World 1-1, 2-1 like style Mario game that we've been getting for the past couple years. We wanted something like Galaxy. We wanted something like Mario 64. And Super Mario Odyssey seems to just fulfill that. And I really can't wait when this game drops very soon in October. Now, this next game essentially stole the show, at least for me and for now, unless something else comes along, but it's going to be very, very difficult to top this one. Dragon Ball FighterZ, or Dragon Ball Fighters, is essentially Marvel vs. Capcom and Guilty Gear, mixed in with Dragon Ball characters. This game essentially made the best first impression, with its visual art style, which is super crisp, it's super well animated, and the fact that there's just so much action going on screen. This is essentially the Dragon Ball fighting game that I never knew I wanted. For years, my best or my favorite fighting games for Dragon Ball, at least in the Dragon Ball series, was Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 and Budokai Tenkaichi 3. As for a lot of people, these two games are revered as some of the best Dragon Ball Z games ever made. Budokai 3 was essentially an attempt to make the series into a proper fighting game, and it succeeded for the most part. And Tenkaichi 3 is the arena style fighter that was essentially, if Dragon Ball Z as it stands was a fighting game. So characters were overpowered, some were more powerful than others, just for the sake of it being true to the franchise. So giant characters couldn't flinch to smaller punches. Yajirobe is completely useless. Hercule is completely useless. Broly is overpowered. Kid Buu's overpowered. Things like that. It was essentially, Budokai 3 was the balanced fighting game. Tenkaichi 3 is the unbalanced but completely true to the series fighting game. And many people wanted that spirit back. They wanted a proper fighting game for Dragon Ball. And for years we haven't really got that. Burst Limit was the closest thing to it, but it didn't really have all the characters that we wanted. It only went up to the Cell Saga. We didn't have any of the Majin Buu characters. And from then on, every other Dragon Ball Z game has been, or at least the majority of them, have been just 3D fighters, 3D arena fighters with limited roster, not that much, gameplay mechanics. Just a simple, hey, here's Goku flying around in a 3D space fighting Cell in a 3D space or something. It's not really, it wasn't something for everybody competitively. Now here comes Dragon Ball FighterZ, which essentially fills that itch for people. This is the game that we, or at least the majority of people, wanted to see for years and years and years. This fills that Budokai 3 itch, and it also fills the Tenkaichi 3 itch in terms of how crazy it can look and how crazy it can be with the tag team mechanics. I understand that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is coming out later this year, and Dragon Ball FighterZ is essentially the same thing. However, Marvel vs. Capcom, while it's very deep in its fighting game mechanics, it's very fun. At first glance, or first impressions are very important. Let's just say that. First impressions are very important. To a casual player, Dragon Ball FighterZ is the most appealing. Marvel vs. Capcom does not look that appealing visual-wise. In terms of gameplay wise, it's just as good, possibly even better than Dragon Ball FighterZ. But the point is, this game, Dragon Ball FighterZ, has the spectacle of DBZ, it has the depth of Marvel vs. Capcom, and it has the polish of an Arc System game like Guilty Gear. It's the complete package as of now, which is why I believe this game, Dragon Ball FighterZ, is the game of the show for E3 2017. E3 2017 has been an event where there have been many different surprises for many different people. I've been seeing a lot of people say that one company was better than the other. For example, Nintendo had the best press conference, or Nintendo won E3. When it comes to the press conferences though, sure, you can compare the companies if you want. But at the end of the day, the majority of E3 is focused on the games. And what we should be comparing are the games themselves. Which game had the biggest impact? Which game stole the show? Which is why I throw it over to you guys now. Which game stole the show for you? This is a time for games that have the potential to take the world by storm in the future to be recognized now.